Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming, and guess what? We're looking at 2v2s today. Yay, everyone's excited. Alright, now that that's out of the way, I promised you guys 2v2s, so here we go. I'm delivering you some 2v2s. Now, I want to preface this before we get into anything at all. The 2v2 we're looking at today is going to be from a Terran and Zerg player's perspective. Now in this game, our Zerg player here is Sorcery, and our Terran player is Power. Those are great names, by the way. Opponents in this game are Kami Zerg player and Protoss Protech. So I want to preface this by saying the following. All right, 2v2s, two things to say about them. One, they're kind of hard to find good games. One of the major reasons is that there aren't a lot of professional players that are playing 2v2s on a regular basis. The reason being that 2v2, the dynamic is vastly different than it is in 1v1. Just the gameplay, the play style, the way the games progress, vastly different than 1v1. One of the primary reasons for that as well is because it's very easy for, I guess you could say, gimmicky tactics to be incredibly effective. Especially on maps where the players are separated, they each have their own base. If two players attack one player at a certain time, if they do a strongly timed push, it's very easy for them to not only cripple them, but possibly take them out in the very beginning of the game, because by the time your ally gets to your base to assist you, you've already lost half of your production buildings or half your workers or whatever, and by that point, you're almost, I mean, it's pretty much, you're screwed. Like, it's pretty much game over at that point. So that's why you don't see a lot of pro players playing 2v2, because the way the dynamic is, and just because it lends itself to very cheesy tactics being effective. Now, again, I'm going to preface this by saying this is not necessarily my way that I play 2v2s. In fact, I don't do gimmicky tactics. I like to play straight up with typical build orders, but I would be remiss to not show you guys this strategy because it is so incredibly effective in 2v2. So let's get right into things. What are we looking at today? We're going to start off by looking at the Terran player's point of view, and then in the next video we're going to be looking at the Zerg player's point of view. The build we're looking at is early Speedling and Baneling coupled with Marines. So this is a Terran and Zerg 2v2 strategy. This is going to be effective in pretty much any matchup, no matter what your opponents are. Again, in this particular game, we're seeing a Protoss and a Zerg opponent. So let me jump right into the build order here. And I know I had to preface that with a lot of stuff, but I think it's important for you guys to realize how different 2v2s are, why they're different, and why certain builds are effective that aren't necessarily effective in 1v1. So we're going to be starting off as Terran, going with early game Marines, and then we're going to be switching into Marauders at a later point, but that's only if the initial push doesn't succeed. So let's look at this build order here. We started off fairly standard with a 10 depot and 12 barracks, and then that's where it kind of changes from there. From this point forward, it's not standard. So it's 10 depot, 12 barracks, and then we get a 15 barracks and a 16 orbital command. Now there's two reasons. Obviously we want to finish this wall off very quickly because of a Zerg opponent. Something like a 6 pool or a 10 pool could be crippling as Terran if you don't finish this wall off, and having such a wide ramp, you need that second barracks up there pretty quickly. But the other thing is too that we also want these second barracks up fairly quick because we're coming out with some pretty early Marines. So we have these two barracks up. 16 supplies when we saw our orbital command. Then at 17 supply, this refinery came down, as well as this third barracks here. And then after that, at 24 supply, right about now, we're seeing this tech lab go down in the barracks. So you just want to open up by making these barracks. Again, I just gave you the timings, pumping out some early game Marines, and then pushing out. Ideally, you want to push out about the 5-minute mark. And you can see here in the game timer, as long as you have it on, you'll know about the right time. So why the 5-minute mark? What's its significance? Well, the idea is that you're going to hit them before they have amassed any strong kind of a force. And since you've been going straight for an army, unless they've been doing the same thing, unless your opponents have been going straight for early game units, if they've been teching up even remotely, you can usually overcome them at this point. So about the 5-minute mark when we're pushing out, our ally here is going to have Speedlings as well as Banelings coming. This is going to be a very effective tactic. Basically what you're going to do is you're almost guaranteed to cripple one person, if not completely take them out of the game. You can see here our Zerg ally is moving in, trying to do damage to the mineral line. He's going to try to get his Banelings in there as well. Your goal basically is to take out anything that is a threat to the Zerglings. Your primary focus is anything that can be threatening to Zerglings, and then he's supposed to protect you against anything that's threatening to Zealots. That's the general idea, but the damage has been done. You saw how easy that was, how quick it was. We took out a lot of his workers there. You see he's almost got none left. So at this point, it's almost a victory. I mean, we've set back this one player so bad. And even though we haven't touched red, the fact that we set his ally back so badly, it's really, really advantageous to us. Like, we're in a really good spot at this point. Now, this is where a transition comes. We start off opening up with Marines. We're going to expect them to overcompensate in order to prepare for a possible second push of mass Marines. And what are we going to do to counteract this? We're actually going to start coming out with Marauders. You can see the Stim Packs coming up. That research started basically as soon as this tech lab went down. That was a 27 supply. But now we're just going to start coming out with Marauders. Now, one thing I want to say is you obviously want to avoid queuing up massively like this. And this is another reason I've had kind of issues coming up with these 2v2 games for you. It's because since not a lot of professional players do them, there are a lot of kind of basic mistakes that you'll see in these games. And I kind of feel bad showing you guys these typical strategy videos that have a lot of mistakes in them. Obviously in something like Community Spotlight, it's fine. But in these normal strategy videos, I try to get play that's as ideal as possible. But this one's not too bad. But stuff like that, you do definitely want to avoid queuing up more than 2 at all costs. And you can see he actually went back on that. But you see you're going to be getting these additional tech labs here as well. Also going to be coming out with an expansion. So we start off with this early push with Marines, Speedlings, and Banelings. And then from your point as the Terran player, from this point forward, you're going to transition into Marauders, and you are also going to go for an expansion. And we just want to, once we amass kind of a decent force of Marauders, somewhere between the 8 and 10 minute mark, that's when you're going to want to move out with your secondary push. Whoever you hit initially, again, you're likely to cripple or take him out of the game. If you hit him again at about the 8 or 10 minute mark, he'll have just basically restarted building. He will just basically have started rebuilding what you took out, and he won't have enough to defend his ally either. So either you can hit him, or you can hit his ally, and either way you should do significant damage and or win the game at that point. So yeah, start off with that Marine push, transition into Marauders, going to be getting this concussive shell. We already have that Stim Pack down. Something else important, you definitely want to get vision in the opposing player's base, the one that you didn't hit, because you want to know if he was going for, like, say he was going for Void Rays or something like that. We would want to be prepared for it. Our Zerg ally would want to get a second Queen. We would want to get some more Marines. Now, that might be your thinking, well, what if he did go for Void Rays? Wouldn't you be screwed? Something else to realize is he's not very likely to go for Void Rays because we hit his opponent so hard early in the game. He's likely to build a lot of early defenses for fear of a secondary attack. And if he doesn't build early defenses, if we didn't see a lot of stalkers on the board, we would have hit before this point and we would have taken him out as he was teching up to Void Rays. So that's the general idea, you know. As long as you're scouting, as long as you see what your opponent's doing, it's going to be effective either way. So at this point, we're just kind of controlling the middle here, taking care of any stalkers that may be going along this path, and then our ally is moving into our opponent's base, and I don't know what those Zerglings are doing. You see what I mean? Casting these non-professional games, there's just like, there are definitely moments where there's like, that should not be happening. But yeah, the general idea, like I said, is an early hit with Marines and Speedlings and Banelings, transitioning into Marauders, just to basically counteract the fact that they're likely to overcompensate to try to defend against that initial push. So, you know, if this Protoss player went for, like he is, went for Stalkers to counteract our Speedlings and our Marines, then switching to Marauders is going to be very strong. Obviously, that Protoss player wasn't too thrilled there. I don't know if you saw what he said, but he wasn't very happy. So yeah, this is a very strong and effective build. You see a lot of Terran and Zerg players doing this because it works. Opening up with those Marines, Speedlings, and Banelings, transitioning into Marauders, very strong, very effective. Let's go over that build order one more time here. Started off with a 10 depot, followed that up with a 12 barracks. Right after that, we got a 15 barracks and a 16 orbital command. Realized that early second barracks coming out for 2 reasons. One of them to finish this early wall off to prevent dying to a Zergling rush. The second reason is because we do want these early barracks to produce those early Marines for that push that we're going to be doing at 5 minutes. 17 supplies when we saw this refinery. 17 supply also getting a 3rd barracks here. 24 supply getting the tech lab on this barracks. As soon as that's up, a 27 supply changing into Stim Pack. Starting with the early Marine push, if that fails, if it doesn't wipe out one of your opponents, which 9 out of 10 times it probably will, then we're going to transition to Marauders from that point. Also at that point going to be getting our expansion, and I would suggest teching up as well. You definitely should be able to afford, if you grab that second refinery after that first push while you're transitioning into Marauders, you can easily get a factory down at that point, possibly a starport. Just get some of that higher tech so that you're safe against anything that your opponent could throw at you. So once again, guys, this has been Force from Force Strategy Gaming. If you guys like our videos and you like what we're doing here, please do go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for part 2 where we're going to be looking at the Zerg player's point of view on this 2v2 strategy. Thanks a lot, guys. Keep keep watching and keep owning. So at this point, we're going to be pushing out. This is exactly what I talked about early in the game. Once we get into his base, what you're going to want to do is target that economy. That's going to be your main focus. Your Terran ally is going to try to help mop up any units that could be a threat to your Speedlings or Banelings, and you just want to move into that economy and try to take it out.